are here today to talk what is the fat burner of our body. So, Steve, hit it off.
Danette,
Yes.
liver.
Yes, exactly.
It's an amazing organ. You know, that thing will take such abuse and it never moans and groans. It just keeps plodding
Right.
along.
And most people don't think that the liver is our fat burner. They think it's movement.
Hmm.
You just got to get up and move, where it's more of the inside, internally, the liver.
Hmm. So if we are going to burn fat, we need to keep the liver from having to convert sugar into fat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you need to move this way. Okay, we're getting closer, folks.
Here we go. Yeah, so you can see us in here.
Yeah. So if we're discussing that, I think that it's really crazy that all at once we're dealing with non-alcohol fatty liver disease. 90% of Americans over the age of 60 deal with it, or obesity.
Right.
And it drops down to where I think the number is about 50% of all teenagers have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
And what causes that? Tell the people what causes when they hear non-alcoholic. Some people don't realize, okay, how do you get that if you're not drinking alcohol?
You're drinking sugar.
There you go. Exactly.
And the body looks at it and says, gosh, I don't know what to do with this stuff, so apparently you're going to hibernate. Let's make fat out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And they store it viscerally around all of the organs. Well, why does the body put it around the organs?
Right.
To protect them.
Exactly. Protection.
Put the toxins into the organ to keep your organ clean.
Mm-hmm.
But then it overrides it, and then we deal with obesity, and people don't understand how to lose it.
Right.
So if I were talking to you, and you looked at folks and said, all right, let's start off with what is it the average person is eating today?
Usually something that is already processed, prepared. They
Okay.
can go to the grocery store. I mean, you can go to any grocery store right now, and they even have, they say they're healthy, prepared foods
Mhm.
in their fresh section. But if they start reading, the sodium intake, all of that's in it, it's not good for us. So it's prepared.
Okay.
They're not getting stuff to be able to flush through the system either. Healthy.
So is it dead? Going
Correct.
back to yesterday,
Yeah.
we were talking about foods that were dead with frequencies.
Compared
and
to,
stuff.
yes, exactly.
Well, as we look at the American diet that we're showing here on the screen, look at the prepared pastas and all of the things that
Right.
constitute sugar.
Right. And it's cheap. A lot of people think I can feed my family on. I mean, you can go to some of these businesses out here and get a whole pizza for a few dollars,
Hmm.
but they don't realize how much that's actually harming the body.
So we could talk about everything has a price,
Yeah.
but it's the cost that we really should be discussing.
The cost in our body, what it's doing to our bodies.
So in comparison, so if you and I were really counseling somebody and they're talking only about money, that costs a bucket load of money to eat foods of that nature. Whereas if we go over to the picture for breakfast,
Right.
all grains, that little breakfast costs about 30 to 50 cents.
And I don't think people are taught that. They think that, it's, that's more fresh stuff. It's going to be more expensive.
Uh-huh.
They don't realize it's, one, cost is not going to be the issue if we're healthy and we're putting something healthy in our body and we're feeling better. It takes the cost of healthcare for our body down too, because we're not as sick as much.
And isn't that what we're really all about? I mean, people today, the sidebar, people today are very concerned about health insurance cost.
Right.
I mean, it's going through the ceiling. And to allow a group of people who have never been in business to determine the health care that we need is
Right.
really quite silly.
So having our picture here with all of this processed food and having something that's really healthy looking, what does that do to go through our body, like the digestive system? Do you think some of the processed food, I know I teach my people, it can kind of just sit there and do havoc on our body compared to something fresh.
Moves along.
Exactly.
So now we begin to incorporate the second brain,
Right.
which most people really haven't figured out that there are two brains, one between your ears, which sometimes functions,
Mm-hmm.
and one in your gut, which actually is more active than the one in between the ears.
Right.
So as we talk about this, again, we're looking at what is sold on the market with Fruit Loops and processed foods plus sugar.
Right.
And I think I saw an article some time ago that of the top 10 companies that market cereals, 50% of that cereal is sugar.
Right.
So if we have a content in blood of about 7 grams of glucose, sugar,
Right.
for a 170-pound person, and you just dump something like that in your body that's 20 grams, where does that excess go?
Right. And people don't understand that. And how do you want to start your day off with sugar?
And then what's it do?
It wants to function on sugar. So what does people do? More sugar.
And it does metabolize to an opiate-like substance.
Right.
So if a person is stressed out, they're not having a good day, and they need a little dopamine kick,
Right.
sugar does it.
Right.
So that's the life that people are living. And, candidly, from a classic statement, you can really determine the end from the beginning.
Right.
Oh my, what an indictment.
Yeah, exactly. So when we eat excess sugar,
Mhm.
what happens?
You tell me.
Well, one is weight gain
Okay?
onto there.
Mhm.
We then have a sugar high, and then what do? We drop onto there. So what does people look for? Another high onto there. So they're just constantly, this wheel keeps turning the same way.
Okay? So what's that do to the liver?
Makes it toxic.
Okay? How toxic?
Very toxic onto there. So, there's things that we can, break down of, just how toxic it is. People don't realize that the liver cleansing our body out.
I heard it once, well, I know this to be true, 5,000 biochemical activities that happen in the liver. 5,000. I mean, it is busy taking care of the toxins that we put in it, the fats that we put in it, the vitamins we put in it. It just goes on and on and on. It's a pretty busy organ.
Right.
So if it's not clean, how do you expect to lose weight?
Right. So then it gets backed up
Okay?
to weight stores.
So if we were to function within that realm, the first thing we ought to do is clean the liver.
Right.
And by cleaning it, we could talk about a host of products,
Mhm.
eating products, showing
Right.
people how to do this correctly. And that's something we'll get into at a later date, okay? Let's first of all lay out the problem.
Okay.
And then present our solution. Go ahead.
All right. So about onto the liver.
Sure.
Okay. So about how it causes weight gain and the cravings of sugars and all of that.
And it protects us from ourselves. I find that amazing. How the body will, take the toxins that it knows we're putting in it and build something like fat to store it in. So if you're going to lose weight, it would make sense that your liver was in great shape because it's going to process all of those toxins that are pulled out of fat.
Right.
And the fat, we used to call it just, another blob of something. But actually now it's got its own hormones and it's considered an organ. So if we have an organ that has unlimited growth features on the outside of the body, we have really created a mess with what? Joint issues, things of that nature, and you work with that all the time. And I think that it would be really neat for you to explain what people are going through dealing with joint issues
With joint issues
and what
onto
fat
there.
does. Yeah.
Well, when you have excess weight on you, mainly where it stores at is, in our midsection. Again, we've just talked about that. So it puts pressure on our joints.
Mhm.
It can actually put so much pressure that, our feet gets turned out, our knees get turned out because the extra weight. So it's really hard onto the joints that way. So people get sore.
Mm-hmm.
They hurt all the time. That kind of stuff.
Arthritis.
Yeah.
Sets in. Cardiovascular issues set in.
Right. Well, they got to stop and think. If we have fat around our midsection, and there's going to be fat around the heart.
Mhm.
So when that heart is being squeezed with extra around it, it cannot pump as much as it should.
So if we were just to really look at people in our culture today, the percentage of people that are overweight, forget the obesity side, it doesn't take much imagination just to take a look at where we are culturally. I'm stunned when I look in the newspaper at pictures of government pictures of people. You know, they have offices. The amount of obesity is staggering.
Right.
And that happens, it's got to have an effect on their emotional well-being.
Oh yeah, I think so. Because if you are not happy with, you know, your extra weight gain or whatever, I think that that turns to emotions
Okay?
onto there, and they people just not happy all in general, so they can go through the day not even being happy.
So we talk about strokes, and we talk about diseases, and we talk about cancers, and all of those seem to be associated with obesity, fats.
Right.
So how are we going to get by this?
Teaching people more of the right way to eat.
An ugly word.
Yes.
We got to sell them on it.
Right. Because there's so many different things out there right now that you need to eat this to lose weight. You can do, you know, if you take this one pill, you're going to lose weight.
Mhm.
It's a gimmick.
Okay? So our object here is to really create such a pretty environment from being healthy that people want to do this.
Right.
But it's got to be based on good, substantiated facts.
Right.
And you and I are both pretty much, you know, on the point of that spear where it's taken us through a different lifestyle to get to where we are. 'Cause
Right. Yeah.
I don't know where you
Exactly.
were, but you said that you gained 85, lost 85 pounds.
Yeah. Well, you know, even being an overweight child and then losing a little bit, then having kids, and then got to a point in my life where I have a medical background, and I was like, oh, I know where I was going, being overweight.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was looking at diseases like that.
Mhm.
I know that the pain was going to come into the knees and that the joint issues and stuff like that. So losing that weight completely helped not just my body, but also my self-esteem.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. How long have you kept the weight off?
10 years.
Has it been hard?
Oh, you have to work at it every day.
You mean you just don't
Right.
lose it? So
Yeah.
what,
It's not a magical wand that was waved over me, and then you keep it. You have to every day work at, do I want to choose to be unhappy, overweight, sick, feeling pain, or do I want to work at it and have different things in life, being joy and not so stressed over having the extra weight on, self-esteem. You feel better. You just
and we can help these people with a
Oh,
good
yeah.
common sense approach, not only from an emotional viewpoint, getting a handle on that,
Right.
but getting a handle on the proper things to eat that makes the energy, and then getting it into a package where it's not expensive for them to do.
Right.
In fact, it's quite profitable. Fair?
And teaching people at any age.
Uh-huh.
We need from young to old is what we need to teach people.
So if we really were going to stand in the gap, because I don't want people to go through what you and I did to get back into the shape that we're in.
Right.
We need for parents and children to come to the table and to learn fundamental science. Not everybody has a science background like we have,
Right.
but they need to have a fundamental science background to understand what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you and I are trying to do. So we will do this next week.